Hey, what is happening, guys? How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. And today, of all the games, we're going to be discussing Pokemon. So, of course, as most of you no doubt already know, Pokemon Sword and Shield releases this coming Friday on November 15th, which is literally, 3 or 4 days from now. It's a big deal. People are extremely excited for it. As we all know, Pokemon is a massive franchise, an incredibly popular franchise. I'm definitely interested to see what the overall kind of reception of this game is going to be, because the lead up and the build up to this game has definitely been filled with quite a bit of controversy. And as I've commented about before, I've seen that numerous times when it comes to Pokemon. Which, of course, leads me to the next reminder, which most regulars already know. I am not a Pokemon fan. I am not experienced with the franchise. I will be playing one of these two games, Sword or Shield or what have you, which will be my first ever Pokemon game, because when I was on the Spawncast several months ago, the game I think had just had the first gameplay shown, and we discussed it. And I basically told everyone there and to all the viewers that I was willing to pick up this game and play it as my first Pokemon game, kind of as an experiment and kind of just to see what the series is like, and also give me a reason to maybe talk to you guys about it from that perspective. But it is that non-fans perspective that I think is really interesting, and why I like to talk to you guys about Pokemon when there's Pokemon information in the news. And there is definitely Pokemon information in the news because the new games are coming out. I mean, I think that is the news, that is the information. There are new releases. And Sword and Shield, you know, as a non-expert, it's still pretty obvious why this game is a big deal and why some Pokemon fans are very excited for it, because it's the next, mainline kind of iteration within this franchise, of course, not counting spin-offs. Like, you get your Pokemon Go's and your Let's Go Pokemons and all these things that are, not the real games that Pokemon fans always seem to complain about until the games come out, and then they buy these spin-off games in droves. And more often than not, what I've witnessed as a non-fan from the outside looking in is that the Pokemon community tends to end up liking these games, even if they were really kind of toxic and vitriolic to a spin-off game of some kind. They end up buying it, and most of the time it seems like people end up liking it. So just a curious thing that I've observed. I'm not telling anyone if that's the right or wrong way to go. I'm just telling you what I've seen happen. And of course, these are also going to be the first time that a mainline Pokemon entry releases on what is technically a home console. Yes, obviously the Switch is a hybrid as well, so it is going to be a portable Pokemon game, just like the games are supposed to be. But the curious case of the Switch means it's also a home console. It's going to be the most powerful, most advanced hardware that we've ever really seen a Pokemon game released on. And considering how well the Nintendo Switch is selling as a device, and considering how well most software sells on it, especially the first party or the exclusive software, it's going to be a massive, massive release. I just can't even fathom, honestly, how well this is going to sell. And so for myself, as a non-Pokemon fan, without the expertise of the whole history of the franchise and the video games and the show and the lore and of the legends and all of that stuff, how am I feeling about it knowing that it's launch week? You know, my hype level is actually not super hyped, and it's a little bit unfortunate because the thing is, this Friday, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order also launches. These two games are coming out on the same day, and I am a massive Star Wars fan. And obviously, because a lot of you guys know that, you know that that is absolutely the game that I am laser focused on right now. I'm even taking a week's worth of my PTO starting this weekend when that game comes out, just so I can have, 7, 8, 9 days or whatever to just be able to play through this brand new Star Wars game that finally looks, fingers crossed, like the Star Wars game that we've been waiting for from the devil that is Electronic Arts. And that's a whole different mess and conversation, and I've had it with you guys before. We're talking about Pokemon today, not Star Wars. We're talking about Pokemon. But the point is, when I look at this being launch week for this game and it coming out this Friday, I have decided not to pick up Pokemon this week, this month, in the launch month, simply because I know that I'm going to be playing a different game that's a little bit more of a priority to me. But I am excited to eventually play the game for sure. And so I think I've decided, because I don't think any other real games are coming out in December, that it's probably going to be something I pick up just next month in December. So I might just be 3, 4, 5 weeks behind, but I will then pick it up. I have no idea which one to buy. I do not understand the differences. I've asked people, and even on that Spawncast, we talked about it, and some people explained it to me. And I think the idea is there's a bunch of Pokemon that are like ubiquitous across both versions, and then each version also has their collection of unique Pokemon, is what I believe it was. And so every time a Pokemon game release comes out, and there's 2 games released at once, you have a bunch of Pokemon in both, and then you have a couple that are, you know, exclusive to each one. And I think that as you play and collect them throughout your journey, you end up also gaining the ability to trade them with other people who own the other version, who don't have that Pokemon. So if you want to try to collect like every Pokemon in the game, that would be the way to do it. Now, I might be wrong on that, okay? That's why I'm having this conversation and telling you up front I'm a non-fan. So it'd be hilarious if that's not even close to accurate. But I think that's pretty close to accurate. That's what you're doing. You're collecting them all. You're catching them all, right? That's what you're doing. And so I think that that's what's going on. As far as which one I would play, a Sword or Shield, I'm going to probably flip a coin, or maybe just have my girlfriend pick, just based on, I don't know, she's a Pokemon fan, so maybe she can tell me which one makes more sense. So next month, I'll be picking up these games. I'll be making it my first ever Pokemon adventure, and I will be very excited to talk to you guys about it. I might even make a month late review, probably a 2-month late review by the time I would be kind of close to finishing that game. But I think it would be worth it for me to discuss my thoughts once I'm done with it. Now, of course, this also comes with the controversy that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. And if I seem exasperated, it's because seeing Pokemon games release with controversy is exasperating. And it's not even to the point that it affects me because I'm not a fan. It's just almost like, man, here we go again. That's kind of the feeling I get. Like, oh, one more time around the rodeo. Pokemon game comes out. Half the people are pissed at it. The other half are yelling at those people trying to defend it. And it's like, that's the battle that is Pokemon and the Pokemon community. And I honestly, I mean, for me personally, I almost end up feeling bad for a lot of you guys who are Pokemon fans or people who might be a part of the Pokemon community, because I would think that if you're a diehard fan and you're excited for every game as it comes out, it has to be pretty frustrating to see people just at odds with each other every time a release comes out, and there's always quotes from somebody or decisions about this, or graphics look like that, or Pokemon are pulled out for this, and then everyone's mad and half the people are yelling and half the people are defending, like I said. That would rip me apart inside if that happened with every Metroid release, okay? Because as you guys know, that's my video game franchise of choice, is Metroid. And, you know, Metroid games don't release to the same frequency as Pokemon, and the audience for Metroid, sadly, is nowhere near the size of Pokemon's. Pokemon's audience dwarfs the audience for Metroid, even though Metroid is a very big popular franchise in its own right. So, you know, if we lived in a world where, let's say, Metroid was a regularly releasing franchise like a Mario or a Zelda maybe, and every couple of years we were always getting a Metroid game, and if every time a Metroid game came out it was this huge controversial kerfuffle on the internet and everyone's yelling at each other from both sides and making themselves look like idiots, I would hate that. That would make me very, very upset, because I would just say, hey, why isn't this franchise that we all love just bringing us together? You know, I know it kind of sounds like a hippy-dippy, like, you know, lovey-dovey kind of mentality, but like, it's serious. Like, if we all love Metroid, we should all come together with a Metroid release. And for Pokemon games, why isn't it bringing all the Pokemon fans together every time there's a release? And so if I, you know, talk a little bit about the what I understand of the controversy, again, as an outsider looking in on the whole situation, it seems to be like the graphics, the engine, the animations, this big thing about the Pokédex, which, as I've had explained to me, just is the collection of all the Pokemon that have ever existed. And so I believe, again, you guys are more than welcome to yell in the comments if I'm wrong about some of this stuff, but I think the interesting part of my conversations about Pokemon is hearing a non-fan talk about it. And maybe I get some stuff wrong, but that's part of how human beings talk about things. They don't always know everything, and I'm just letting you guys know that ahead of time. And so, the Pokédex, I believe, is just like every Pokemon that's ever released is in the Pokédex. And I think every main Pokemon game up until Sword and Shield has had every Pokemon in it, right? So that's that. But then along comes Pokemon Sword and Shield, and again, as it's been explained to me by other Pokemon fans and experts like Austin John Plays and stuff on Twitter, it sounds like this is the first time where they're not including every Pokemon ever made in this game, which I think is it over 1,000? I feel like it's over 1,000 Pokemon, or even if it's over 700, which I think it's well over 700, that's a lot of Pokemon. And so what I think happens, you're running into trainers and you're battling your Pokemon, and so you have a chance at running into any of these 1,000 Pokemon in the world. That means they'd have to create character models and animations for every Pokemon, and of course, I'm going to pretend like I'm an expert here, Pokemon evolve, which means there's multiple versions of every Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken. And so for 1,000 Pokemon, that would mean you'd have to make, 3,000 different character models, right? Because I think there's 3 evolutions for each character, each Pokemon. And you got to make movesets and you got to make stats. And so anyway, the point is, from the game development side, I can imagine that's probably pretty difficult to do. And so maybe that was part of the reason they decided not to include every Pokemon. All I can say is, on that specific controversy, obviously I am not sweating it because I only know the main Pokemon, like the ones in Smash Brothers. I know Pikachu, I know Squirtle, who's the best Pokemon of all time. You can't fight me on that, you won't win. I know Snorlax, I know Jigglypuff, and like Mewtwo. So like those guys, I know like less than 10 Pokemon, okay? That's what I know. So I'm not really too concerned about that going into this game. But for longtime fans, even though I think people have maybe reacted a little bit too extreme about this, I understand the frustration, because it seems like there's been a precedent set with every game. You get all the Pokemon, and now here comes this one, and they're not giving you something you're used to getting that's been a part of the franchise. I'm sure that to a degree that sucks pretty hard. Now, there's also like the graphics and the visuals controversy that I've seen, which I find a little bit ironically hilarious, because I will never forget when they first revealed footage and gameplay in that trailer of the game. I think it was early this year, 2019, 7-8 months ago, something like that. And I was definitely curious as a non-fan this was before I decided to play the game, but I was like, well, let's see what the new Switch Pokemon is going to be all about. I don't even know if they had a name Sword and Shield yet at that time, probably not. And all that footage played. It was like a 5 or 10 minute, like kind of Nintendo Direct sort of thing or whatever, Pokemon presentation. And I remembered being not impressed and surprised how much it looked like, just HD versions of what I'd seen from 3DS games. And it reminded me so much of what I had seen from Let's Go Pokemon, because that had just come out a couple months beforehand. And I even did like screenshot comparisons. I looked at them and I was like, man, I mean, it definitely looks better on the Switch, but the whole art direction, the simplicity of the world, the simplicity of the engine and the character models, their whole look and their aesthetic and their animation, it was the same as, the base was the same as Pokemon Let's Go, only just a little bit better, a little bit enhanced, but it was the same thing. And so I was like, that's kind of a shame to see. I was hoping to see something, kind of drastic. As a non-fan, I wanted something more drastic to make me interested, I know that that's crazy for longtime fans, but as a non-fan, that makes sense, right? So I was hoping to see something like that, but I wasn't disappointed because I didn't really care either. And I definitely, I talked a little bit about it on Twitter, thinking, the visuals, the graphics, the art direction, it's a little, looks like Let's Go Pokemon, and it's just not bad, but it's just not great, and it's not for me. I think that's something to that effect that I said, and a lot of people disagreed with me and thought that I was just crazy, and oh my god, it's like a totally different game. How could you possibly see it as the same or whatever, or not impressive? Hey, people came at me. No, nothing too bad, but some people came at me. And here we are now, several months later, and it seems like a lot of people are agreeing with that sentiment, that they're not happy with the visuals, they're not happy with the graphics. I've seen some comparisons made to previous games, and like the engine being the same as previous games, and so longtime fans in the Pokemon community have now chimed in and basically echoed some of the same things I was saying back when the trailer first came out, which I was saying as a non-fan who wasn't even bothered by it. It was just an observation. And, that's another thing where it's, what do you say about that? I guess everyone has a different standard or an expectation for what they need out of a certain video game. If it's a franchise they love, like they're longtime Pokemon fans, they want something specific. It's the only problem I have with it is that it's just shown me how, kind of like I said at the beginning of this video, it just seems like Pokemon fans are never happy with Pokemon, And that's just a shame to see. It's a very popular, beloved franchise. I know that they're good adventure RPGs for people who like that genre and this franchise. And so why is it that people are always so mad and upset at this game? I don't know. I'm very excited to see what a Pokemon game is like, see if the story wraps me in, see what the gameplay of battling Pokemon feels like. This game has introduced like the Gigamex or the Dynamex or something, like the big Pokemon battle arena thing. I don't know if that's like an online only kind of thing where you're just battling with people in an online arena, or if that's part of the game in the story. I don't know. I don't even know if there's online to this game. I clearly haven't researched it that much because I don't need to. It's like, I don't know much about Pokemon and I'm just going to discover it as I play it. You know, I'm already willing to jump in, purchase it with my money, and spend the time to play it, so I haven't worried about the details. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm curious. Like the Gigamex thing, or I think it is Dynamex, looks pretty cool. Like big ass Pokemon. Sure, why not? And so anyway, since it was launch week, since there's a lot of hype and excitement for this, and there's also a lot of controversy, I felt it was worth me kind of just BSing about this next big Nintendo Switch release. It's a Pokemon release. It's a mainline game, not a Let's Go spinoff. And unfortunately, I am taking a month off to play Star Wars before I jump in, but in a couple of weeks I will be officially, for the first time ever, giving my first ever money towards a Pokemon product and buying a Pokemon video game and playing it and giving it a good honest shot. Like, I'm not going to go in like a curmudgeon, like, you know, bastard who just doesn't want it to be good or want to give it a chance. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm sure I'm going to find maybe a simple little delightful game, you know, and it'll probably be fine. If I do hate it, I'll tell you if I hate it. But I don't expect to hate it. I'm sure it'll be fine. So either way, this has just been me rambling about Pokemon. And I'm not even a fan. So how I managed to make a 15-minute video about this stuff, I don't even know. Maybe it's 20 minutes. I don't know what it's going to be like when I edit it down. But I don't know. It's Pokemon launch week. It's Pokemon hype week for most of you guys out there. Star Wars hype week for me. And with that being said, this video is a wrap, so let's see what happens. Talk about what you think about Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out this week. And yeah, so thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.